I'm fat, I'm lonely, I'm hot, I'm tired.
Preach.
Today we are ranking the albums of the Acacia Strain, starting with And Life is Very Long in 2002. Another case, as with most metalcore bands of this era, where the debut is more of a reflection of the times rather than the band's personal identity. There's very little here that really identifies their particular sound, but I do dig me some mathy riffs, panic chords, and well-placed movie samples, so I can get down. Quite a bit happening right from the top with all those elements on display, as well as a transition to acoustic and big harmonized melodic solo. Killing on Empty is also a standout. Plenty of solid guitar work and enjoyable moments, and it's a better debut than many of their peers had, but it's not their best, and so I am putting this one just at okay. They followed that up with 3750 in 2004. Getting a little slower and chuggier, some standout harmonized riffing on Brown Noise and mathy elements on the title track and Drawn and Quartered. Solid use of a sample from a Charles Manson prison interview too. Soft acoustic number on Halcyon. Shorter runtime in just 29 minutes, which I always appreciate with an album like this, but it still doesn't really amount to the most memorable experience for me. It packs a tighter, more focused punch than the debut, though, so I'm going to put this one at good tier. Then we got The Dead Walk in 2006. Getting a little genty on this one with Burn-Faced almost half a decade before that was cool. At this point, Meshuggah was still really the only band doing that on a large scale, and I love the sudden rhythm change about halfway through. And speaking of which, it feels like they really step up the songwriting on here in general, taking what they built with that last album, but making things more dynamic and interesting. Definitely hearing this on the constantly shifting palette of 4x4, I love those noisy riffs on As If Set Afire, and some fun little creepy hooks topping off Demolisher. Pity and Predator Never Pray are certified bangers. Vincent Bennett also stepping up his game a bit on vocals with some standout moments, switching up his inflection, especially on See You Next Tuesday. They really came into their own with this one, and the production from Adam D of Killswitch Engage never hurts either. I am actually putting this one at perfection. It is my favorite of their earlier era records. Moving on, we have Continent in 2008. Largely picking up where the last one left off, with more real headbangers in Skynet and The Combine, and just when it starts feeling like they may have traded the previous album's variety for sheer heaviness, we get the highly ambitious and atmospheric instrumental The Behemoth, which was unlike anything else they had written so far, and feels like it would be more at home on like a Killswitch Engage album. Some other standouts here, like the groovy Forget Me Not and the chuggy JFC. Human Furnace of Ringworm also makes a welcome appearance on the ominous Baby Buster. Some great hooks on Kraken and drumming on Global Warming as well. Overall, I do think that this one isn't paced as well as the last one, and as crushing as the beatdown energy can be, I just don't find myself as consistently enthralled. So, solid album, I'm putting it at great tier. Next up is Wormwood in 2010.
Some heavy shit, Doc.
Coming into the new millennium with a fan favorite here, more supremely pissed off energy with the Bad Days, Someone Shit in My Cornflakes lyrics of BTM FDR, and that energy continues into the ripping Ramirez, more gentrification with Terminated, The Impaler, and the Carpathian, but my personal favorite is probably Jonestown, with just the full package of wicked riffs and rhythms coming together in a similar style as After the Burial at times. Bay of Pigs will also give you serious Stankface with its plotting groove and deathcore atmosphere, which complements most of the dark subject matter of this album. We also have guest spots from Jamie Josta on The Beast and Bruce LePage of 100 Demons on Nightman.
The Nightman cometh.
Had to say it just as an excuse to do that, but anyways, excellent album. Again, fan favorite. I am putting it at perfection. Next up is Death is the Only Mortal in 2012. Another genty opener in Doomblade, and strap in for that for the duration with this one. They're really leaning into the deathcore energy overall and just like continuing that into Go to Sleep, which additionally has vocals from Crowbar's Kirk Weinstein. And the result is pretty hypnotic. I dig the atmosphere, but I do feel like we again lose some of the variety and dynamics in the process here. Like again, tracks like Victims of the Cave and Time and Death and God are super spooky sounding and just chilling at times, but the endless binary guitar work gets kind of bland. It is kind of cool to hear them go full Meshuggah on the ladder, but if I just wanted Meshuggah, I can listen to Meshuggah, so solid listen. Just a little one note, I do enjoy the Chambered Nautilus. I'm also putting this one at great tier.
There you have it, guys. The making of a new record that we just did.
Then we got Coma Witch in 2014. The first album to feature new guitarist Devin Schittaker and Richard Gomez after the departure of longtime original guitarist Daniel Laskovics. Also notably produced by Will Putney, digging the craterous opening and infectious lyrics of Human Disaster. But at this point, especially coming off of that last album, a lot of this just kind of feels like Whitechapel to me, especially songs like Send Help and Graveyard Shift, which also feature guest spots from Max Cavalera and Sven DeCalway of Aborted, respectively. And that's not a bad thing. Like, I enjoy Whitechapel, and these are all stellar tracks. I don't really think they have a bad album. But again, I like when they kind of shake things up rather than getting too wrapped up in what other bands are kind of doing or sound like, either intentionally or unintentionally. Holy Walls of the Vatican may be my personal favorite here, really bringing some energy, and Bridge Painter really brings a fury around the middle with those covered in red gang vocals. I'm going to also put this one at great tier. Then we got Gravebloom in 2017. More Will Putney co-production here, opening on a bit of a sludgier note with Worthless, which is a nice change of pace. Getting a little Rivers of Nile from this one. There's some spoken word there too. Lots of emphasis on the bass and low end for a murky sound that feels like trying to two-step in a swamp. Slow and sickening for tracks like Plague Doctor, but some occasional faster flair on the likes of Bitter Pill. Some killer guest spots on this one too, my personal favorite being Kubla Khan's Matt Honeycutt on the crushing Big Sleep. But then there's also Kobayashi Hiroyuki of Loyal to the Grave, Rob Fusco of Most Precious Blood, and even Ben Falgost of Goathor on Dark Harvest. Killer solo on the title track, wild tribal drumming on Calloused Mouth, and the general slow pace really makes moments like the explosive Model Citizen pop even more. Some of the backing elements on this album also remind me of the Last Daughters album, although that actually came out a year after this. Entrancing stuff, a much more interesting and essential album after those last two, if you ask me. I am putting it at perfection. Then we got It Comes in Waves in 2019. Stepping up the experimentation even more on this one, and the first one I reviewed for Metal Trenches back when I just did written reviews. The single word track titles here come together to complete the phrase, our only sin was giving them names, and likewise complete one continuous 30-minute composition. This is always an ambitious move, and in many cases ends up not particularly appealing to me, but this was one that really stuck with me. It's not one of my top favorites from the band, but I find it to be one of the more interesting and original ones. Incredible atmosphere above all else. Like, despite being totally different genres, this gives me the same vibes as, like, Leviathan or Bluthaus Nord. Maybe a little Rivers of Nile in there again, too. Those vocals at the end were a nice surprise as well. I am putting this one at fantastic. And this would not be the last time that the band decided to do something a little different. Next up is Slow Decay in 2020. I was a little nervous going into this one as opener Feed a Pigeon, Breed a Rat falls back into the sound of Death and Coma Witch, but fortunately from there we get more hardcore influence coming through, especially with Aaron Hurd of Jesus Peace guessing on the punishing Seeing God. And speaking of which, this one also has a number of great guest spots, including the fierce Jess Nix of Mortality Rate on the infectious The Lucid Dream, Zach Hatfield of the highly underrated Left Behind on I Breathed in the Smoke Deeply, It Tasted Like Death and I Smiled. That's a great title, by the way. And Courtney LaPlante of Spirit Box on 1000 Painful Strings. Inverted Person is another highlight. Overall, I don't find this one to be as impressive as engaging start to finish as the last record, but it carries over a lot of elements I enjoy from a number of their records over the years. I am putting this one at great, but kind of higher up on that tier. Then we got Step Into the Light in 2023. Two very different albums released on the same day, starting with this very focused 23-minute outing that follows more of a grindcore kind of format, and as pissed as ever with that crazy opening scream going into the beatdown energy of Flourishing. Sometimes a minute and some change is all you need. Also enjoy getting battered to a pulp by Fresh Bones, Open Wound, Untended Graves, and Chain featuring Jacob Lilly of Chamber. Some more slowcore moments too with the lumbering Is This Really Happening and Teeth of the Cursed Dog. May the Bodies That I Burn Light My Way is such a hype lyric. I definitely have been feeling the title of None of Us Asked to Be Here lately. Killer bass groove to Sinkhole with Joseph Alonso of Tsunami as well. Really brutal stuff. I'm putting this one at fantastic. We also got Failure Will Follow in 2023. Now, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we have this 38-minute counterpart made up of just 3 sprawling tracks. Pillar of Salt opening with some soft keyboard to signal another more experimental and atmosphere-focused outing, this one with the help of Full of Hell's Dylan Walker and Iris.exe. These guys have toyed with Doom up to this point, but this is their first full-on Doom and sludge record, complete with some classic Sweetleaf vibes on Bogwalker, too. Really getting down in the mud for their bleakest outing yet, and appropriately also complemented by the king of misery himself, Ethan McCarthy of Primitive Man, on Basin of Vows. Now, as someone who isn't a big Doom guy myself, I'll admit that I initially kind of scoffed at this one, and it didn't help that I was already overloaded with, like, so many projects at that time. But I have to admit that this is just absolutely vile stuff, and unlike anything else in their discography, and I commend them for continuing to be so willing to experiment with different approaches over 20 years into their career without ever straying too far for their fan base to seem willing to follow, too. That's a hard kind of line to walk. I'm going to put this one at fantastic. Before we get to the most recent album, just a reminder, hit the like button if you're enjoying the video already. Helps me in the algorithm, as does putting your own ranking down in the comments. This is all just my opinion anyways. I want to hear yours. But that brings us to You Are Safe From God here in 2025. Format-wise, this very much falls into the same style as Step Into the Light with the shorter track lengths, but this time extending the runtime to a more standard 40 or so minutes. Opening up by Bringing the Pain once again with Burnt Offering and A Call Beyond, mixing more bone-breaking beatdowns with frenzied D-beats. The latter also has a wonderful kind of VHS series-worthy music video featuring comedian Jordan Jensen, of all people, that played at the top. The Machine That Bleeds only doubles down on the heaviness with guest vocals from wrestler Brody King and Colin Young, both of God's Hate, and you may also know Colin from Twitching Tongues. And Swamp Mentality once more getting downright grindy with its chaotic blasts and noisy guitars. Great start-stop riffs and more ripping D-beat on I Don't Think You're Going to Make It, before ending on a particularly harrowing note with that chilling atmosphere continuing into Acolyte of the One. That backing track is the stuff of nightmares. We also have some sludgier moments coming back here too, like on Morningstar, Aeonian Wrath, and World Gone Cold, but these are rarely far from another high-octane pace change. The big one on the slow side, though, is the almost 14-minute closer Blood Loss, ending things with a bit more of that failure to follow aesthetic and a final guest feature in the both fiery and sultry soothing tones of Holy Light's Sunny Ferris. And the breakdowns on Holy Moonlight and Sacred Relic gave me the hardest stank faces of my life. Like, seriously, this is how you do it. Less is more. Put me in the fucking ground! Just when I think that they've made their heaviest album yet, they only seem to top themselves. I think that pound for pound, this may very well take the metal at this point. They've given their tributes to classic metalcore, deathcore, gent, sludge, doom, and now arguably one of the finest and most pummeling metallic hardcore albums you can find in the modern era, right alongside the likes of like Harm's Way, Knocked Loose, and any other big name you can throw out there. I'm putting this album at perfection, and honestly, it may go down as one of my favorites of the year. It really dented my skull. Y'all check out this playlist for more core rankings, or this for your personal YouTube recommendation. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.